Welcome back, everybody, to Trigger Happy Tactical Podcast. And you know what time it is? It's time to lock, load, and listen. And this time, make sure you listen all the way to the end because this episode is probably our most important one. All right, today's episode isn't just another talk about guns, training, or gear. Today we're talking about why those things even matter, why we can even do those things. We're going to take a deep dive into the history, the philosophy, the law, and the heart of what keeps America free, the Second Amendment. Because without it, the rest of the Bill of Rights, just a piece of paper. Now, let's go back to the late 1700s. The ink was barely dry on the Declaration of Independence. The Revolutionary War had just ended, and the founders, fresh off defeating the most powerful army on earth, sat down to write a document that would make sure no government could ever become the tyrant they'd just overthrown. That document became the Constitution of the United States, and just a few years later, in 1791, came the Bill of Rights. 10 amendments that would limit government power and protect the individual were then written. Among those was one short, powerful sentence: a well-regulated militia, being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms, shall not be infringed. Now let's be clear, that wasn't just poetic language. It was a warning, a reminder to the government who truly holds the power in this country. The founders had seen what happened when the British tried to disarm their subjects. Lexington and Concord were sparked because British soldiers marched to seize colonial weapons from their people. Freedom was literally born at the sound of gunfire from armed citizens who refused to be disarmed. Now, to understand the Second Amendment, we have to understand the mindset of the people who actually wrote it. These weren't men who trusted the government. They were men who feared unchecked power that they had fought a war against. See, James Madison, the founder and father of the Constitution, made it very clear. A well-regulated militia, composed of the body of the people, trained to arms, is the best and most natural defense of a country. George Mason, one of the greatest voices of the founding era, said it even more directly. I ask, sir, what is the militia? It is the whole people, except for a few public officials. And he warned, to disarm the people is the most effectual way to enslave them. Thomas Jefferson also echoed that conviction, and he went on to say, no free man shall ever be debarred the use of arms. And later, Patrick Henry, the man who cried, give me liberty or give me death, said, the great object is that every man be armed. Everyone who is able may have a gun. See, these men, they weren't poets. They were warriors and philosophers who knew that liberty only exists when citizens are capable of defending it. These men knew something timeless, that governments don't stay good just because they were founded with good intentions. They stay good because the people retain the power to resist them. That's what the Second Amendment is all about. It's not really about hunting. It's not really about sport shooting. It's about balance. It's about making sure no one, not a king, not a president, not a bureaucrat, could ever rule over a disarmed people. The Second Amendment didn't just get written out of thin air. Its roots go back to English common law and English Bill of Rights of 1689, which stated that citizens had the right to have the arms for their own defense. That principle traveled across the Atlantic and evolved through the colonial America, from militias that defended against invasions and tyranny to the belief that the people themselves were the ultimate safeguard of liberty. In the colonies, every able-bodied man was expected to own and maintain his own firearm, not only for hunting, but for defense of home, community, and colony. When the Revolution came, it was those same armed citizens who stood up at Lexington and Concord, proof that a free people with arms is not just protected, but it's unconquerable. And that belief was echoed again and again and again in early American documents, such as the Virginia Declaration of Rights of 1776, guaranteed the right of the people to bear arms for the defense of themselves and the state. Many state constitutions also included very similar language. See, the founders understood that rights don't come from the government. It existed before government. It's a natural right, the right to defend your own life. Now, for a long time, the courts didn't interpret the Second Amendment clearly, and there's been back and forth problems with it and fighting. Cases like United States versus Cruikshank, 1875, and Presser v. Illinois, 1886, both acknowledged the right existed, but tried to limit its application to only the federal government. It wasn't yet again recognized as an individual right that states had to respect. Then we had Nunn v. Georgia, an early case where the Georgia Supreme Court ruled that banning handguns violated the Second Amendment, saying the right to bear arms belongs to the people, not just to the government or their militia. Then we fast forward to the District of Columbia v. Heller in 2008. This is a big turning point. In Heller, the Supreme Court finally and unequivocally confirmed that the Second Amendment protects an individual right to possess a firearm unconnected with the service in a militia, and to use of that firearm for traditionally lawful purposes such as self-defense within the home. That was a monumental win for freedom, but the fight didn't end there. See, in McDonald v. Chicago 2010, the court extended that protection to all 50 states, saying the Second Amendment applies to the state and local governments through the 14th Amendment. And then came New York State Rifle and Pistol Association v. Bruen in 2022, another huge landmark. The court ruled that the right to bear arms extends beyond the home, that any gun law must be consistent with the nation's historical tradition of firearms regulations. These decisions were critical, not because they gave us new rights, but because they reaffirmed the rights we always had. But honestly, here's the hard truth. The Second Amendment is still under attack, now more than ever, from politicians who swear to uphold the Constitution while writing laws to undermine it, to states that ban certain rifles or limit magazine capacities under these false labels of common sense, to tech companies that censor gun-related content and media outlets that twist every tragedy into another excuse to disarm law-abiding citizens. Every time regulation is justified, you inch closer to a society where the citizens no longer hold the balance of power. This fight isn't new. It's as old as our republic, and the founding fathers feared it. When citizens are disarmed, tyranny fills that vacuum. We can't let that happen. Not now, not ever. Every generation faces its own battle to preserve freedom, and this is ours. The narrative they sell is always the same, right? You don't need a gun. You can trust the government to protect you. It's for your safety. But as George Washington said, government is not reason. It's not eloquence. It's force. Like fire, it is a dangerous servant and a fearful master. That's why the founders didn't give us the Second Amendment. They recognized it. Because once you give the government the monopoly on force, freedom simply becomes an illusion. The Second Amendment isn't just about protection from crime. It's about protection from tyranny, both foreign and domestic. Every armed citizen is a quiet guardian of freedom. An armed population is a deterrent, not just for criminals, but to dictators. It also means something bigger. The armed citizen is a line of defense no invading army wants to face. The deterrent of power of a well-armed citizenry is real. During World War II, Japan's Admiral Yamamoto reportedly said, "You cannot invade mainland United States. There'd be a rifle behind every blade of grass." Now, whether or not he said that word for word, the meaning is very clear. A nation of armed citizens is a nation that cannot be conquered easily. And that deterrent still matters today. Because the Second Amendment doesn't just protect our borders, it protects our spirit. It ensures that we, the people, will never bow to tyranny, foreign or domestic. And on a personal level, it ensures you can defend what matters most: your home, your loved ones, your life, and your country. Because when seconds count, police are minutes away, and your firearm is the equalizer that guarantees your right to survive. Now, Ronald Reagan said this: freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. We didn't pass it to our children in the bloodstream. It must be fought for, protected, and handed on for them to do the same. And that's where we come in. See, we defend it. We defend this right not with hate, but with education and knowledge. We teach gun safety, responsibility, and history. We talk to our kids. We talk to our communities. We remind them that freedom isn't free. It's preserved by those willing to stand up for it. We stay informed, we vote, we train, and we teach the next generation that this right is sacred. Because the Second Amendment is more than just words. It's our firewall of liberty. If it fails or falls, the rest of our rights fall with it. And in closing, the founders wrote it. Generations have fought to protect it, and now it's our turn to defend it in courts, in conversation, and in culture. If we let this right erode, if we stay silent, then we dishonor anyone and everyone who fought and died to protect it. But if we stand united, informed, and active, we ensure that that freedom lives on. The Second Amendment isn't about fear, it's about freedom. It's not about violence, it's about balance. It's the reason our flag still flies, the reason our people still stand tall and our enemies still hesitate. This is the Trigger Happy Tactical Podcast, reminding you that the right to keep and bear arms isn't just a privilege, it's a duty. So train smart, stay vigilant, protect your family, and as always, lock, load, and listen. Now, I know this episode feels real different from all our other episodes, but that's because I feel like it's probably one of our most important episodes. This episode came completely from my heart, and it feels like something that I just need to pass on to everyone, not just our current listeners, but every one of you. Please share this episode everywhere and with everybody to have our voice heard and our reasons listed. And as usual, thank you all very much. And I couldn't have done this episode without you. And remember, if it's worth fighting for, you need to fight for it.